I'm a fan of the culture. So when you see me sitting down with different artists or, different celebrities, entertainers, I'm just either a fan of what they do, or I may not be a fan of what they do, but I'm just trying to learn more about them. So it's just always a sense of discovery with me. I'm one of those people that feels like you should give people the credit they deserve for being stupid, including yourself. So that just means the know-it-all knows nothing. So I would never call myself like an educator or a leader of anything. I'm just a fan of the culture at the end of the day. And I feel like everybody should keep that sense of discovery. I think when you keep that sense of discovery, it makes the game more fun.
Okay, guys. My teacher, Lashondra Alsey, anyway, she's not actually my teacher, but she's like my sweetheart here on Nay's, on the Nay Rob channel, and she supports me everywhere. But she sent me a message and asked me to look at this show called TV One Uncensored with Charlamagne God, and I'm glad she did, because I found it to be very, very interesting. And if you all don't know anything about me, I am a shit talker. I say whatever I want to say in that moment, and goddamn it, if it changed the next goddamn day, so the F what? That's my prerogative. And that's what I kind of like about Charlamagne the God, because I consider him to be a shock jock. I do. Not quite as nasty as Wendy Williams, but he says things to catch people off guard. And I find that quite entertaining about him on the Breakfast Club. In fact, he's part of the reason why I followed the Breakfast Club on YouTube, because I found him to be quite interesting. But enough talking about my, like for the dude. Let's say this. Hey guys, hey, this is Nay. Follow me on IG, Periscope, Twitter, Spreaker, and support me on Patreon and Nay Rob on YouTube. Don't forget to like this video, share this video, comment respectfully, and subscribe. Now, let's talk about Charlamagne the God. Okay, so I wrote about a couple of points that I found that was very interesting. I'm going to keep saying that word interesting because I find him interesting. In fact, I was thinking about doing a YouTube section where I talk about the most interesting people on YouTube. It's like a clever way of doing shout outs. But when you learn a person's story and you learn what they actually go through, you gain respect for that person, right? So the first thing I want to talk about is when he was on the show, when Monique was on the show on the Breakfast Club, she called him Leonard. And then he hit her with Leonard. I said, oh, he's trying to be funny. And then from looking at the episode of Uncensored, his name is actually Leonard. I've never in my life met a Leonard. Now, I've met a Leonard before that was full of some bull snit, but I've never met a Leonard. So that was funny to me that was actually his name. The next thing I want to talk about is, I've probably talked about this shortly or briefly before, was that I love how the Southern man holds his father on a pedestal. That's not something that you see often in the northern states. Now, y'all can correct me. I'm only talking about my area, DC. I'm only talking about that. So, y'all know that my ex is from Texas. And no matter whether his father was president or not, he still revered his father in such a high regard. And I see that often from country men. Also, something that my wife noticed since she's been down here in Atlanta, is she says that the women in the South don't really have time for that bullshit like that. Okay, they don't have it. They find a way to make it work. Okay, they got a baby father who ain't shiz, but it don't matter. They make it work. They work together with their baby father to make things happen. They not really as, let's say, I don't want to say petty, but they get the job done down here in the South. And I think that is part of the reason why the young men here hold their fathers with that regard, because the Southern woman to me, and y'all can check me, is just a little more supportive of their men no matter how shitty they are.
I do come from a small town, a place where, like, at the time it was 7,000, 8,000 people. Population might be a little bigger now, but a lot of us weren't thinking past that dirt road, So if it wasn't for books and music, I wouldn't know what other world existed out there.
I introduced them to the autobiography of Malcolm X that was printed by Alex Haley.
To me, man, that's the greatest story of human evolution that I've ever known about on this planet. Malcolm X was once Malcolm Little. Like, you got to know who Malcolm Little was to know why him being Malcolm X was such a big deal. Like, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad just transformed him in a total different way. So I remember, getting that book and reading that book made me want to evolve. It let me know that growth is possible.
Now, that right there radiates volume to me because, like I said, I'm from D.C. One of the hoods that I grew up in was this place called Some Quarters. This is when I was younger, and I wasn't like the kids in the neighborhood. Well, it was a few of us, but I went to private school. My mom felt a certain kind of way about me playing or hanging out with the kids in the area. She always felt like I was better, which I, still would argue with. If she was alive, I would still argue to this day with her, but that was her thought about me. So what she would do to try to keep me busy was she made sure I had a lot of books. And even my family to this day still, I ain't gonna say pick on money, but they used to call me L7, a square, because I would get so engulfed in book reading. And I'm glad I did, because what books do is books can transcend you past your environment. Because if you're not getting outside of your hood, and this is so important to people that live in underprivileged areas, when you're not getting past your hood, then you have to allow your children to escape somehow. And books allow children to escape, to learn, to grow. My mother had me in a damn book club where I learned about every animal in the zoo, every country, everything. So, and also, we were really artsy, so they believed in, my family believed in museums and going to plays and things like that. But I thought that it was very honorable for his father to give him books and to make sure that he knew that you can be greater. You can be bigger. Sometimes people just need words of encouragement to make them feel like they're not limited and that they can actually be limitless. And let me say one more thing about reading. I used to be an avid reader, okay? And I'm kind of disappointed at the fact that I don't read as much anymore. Now I have more time to read. But when I tell you my vocabulary was through the roof, now it's very shaky because I'm a bit older. My brain isn't as clear and as sharp as it used to be. But I was very proud of my capabilities in writing and expressing myself, and that's what books give you. So books are always a necessity in life, because it helps you to get past cussing. That's part of the reason why I don't really like to cuss, because cussing limits your vocabulary. But that's enough to talk about that. Let's move on.
I wasn't a good drug dealer at all. Truthfully, there is no such thing as a good drug dealer, because all drug dealers end up in the same place, either jail or dead. Like, I don't know why we continue to act like, there's a upside to drug dealing. There isn't.
So let me say what's commendable about that conversation right there that he just had. Listen, I know we all know, especially if you from the hood, I know we all know people, young people out there, little boys out there, little girls out there who get out there on that street and they think they can make a quick dollar or whatever it is they think they're going to do. And we sit back and we look at them and be like, oh my God, they're going to kill that little boy. Don't he know he out there on the street with a bunch of savages? They gonna kill him.
We started smoking like really, really, really large amounts of weed. Me and my homeboys started calling each other the infamous Buddha heads, and like all of us took these different names based off marijuana. So I was like Charlie Chronic. My homeboy was like Mikey Marijuana, Bobby Buddha, Ichabodism, stuff like that. And then like when I started selling crack, you know, being that I'm from this small town, I didn't want to tell the fiends my real name because they would look at me and be like, oh, you Larry's son, or you Julie's son. So I used to keep like a hoodie on, and you know, when they would pull up, I'd just be like, yo, my name's Charlie, or Charles. And so that's what they would ask for when they would pull up. And I remember being in night school and I was just reading in a history book, and I saw that Charlamagne was French for Charles the Great. And I was like, oh, that's dope. I'm going to start calling myself Charlamagne. Because I already called myself Charles and Charlie. I'm like, I'm going to start calling myself Charlamagne. My dude who used to cut my hair at the time, his name is Divine Allah. He just introduced me to the 120 lessons. And, you know, he's the person who put books in my hands like From Niggas to Gods by Akil. And he had me studying my supreme alphabet and supreme mathematics and teaching me that the black man is God. You know, I was all in on that. So it was just like, yo, Charles the Great, Charlamagne, the God.
So I don't have much to say about that, but I wanted to put that in this video. So now that's the unanswered question, because I was always like, where the hell he get his name from? And child, now we know.
Now, while Wendy was doing afternoons in Columbia, her and her husband Kev, you know, would come down to the market. And I remember the first time Wendy broadcasted from the radio station, Hot 103.9, I walked in there with a gang of mixtapes, because I used to sell mixtapes at the time, my own mixtapes, and I had like a parody song I wanted her to hear called Pink Tees. And I walked in that studio and tried to push all of this stuff on her and tell her she was an inspiration to me. And she looked at me and she said, get the out of the studio with that mixtape. I'm trying to do my show. She said, take that mixtape, my husband. That's exactly what she said. I wasn't discouraged. I listened. I took that mixtape, her husband.
Okay, so that was the beginning of his relationship with Wendy. He went on to talk about how him and Kevin had got pretty tight. Now, if y'all remember, part of the problem that ended up with Wendy and Charlamagne was that Charlamagne was supposedly the one who introduced Kev to his mistress. If y'all didn't know that. Now, they didn't say that in this in this episode, but just so you know, that's part of the tea that is whipped. That the girl was from South Carolina. Charlamagne introduced him and Kev. Hey, this is my homegirl from South Carolina. And Kev was like, oh, yeah. And then it was on and popping since then.
So me and my homeboy Frosty, DJ Frosty, we went up to New York. And, you know, Wendy was in the party and she was drunk. And she saw me and she was excited to see me. And she was like, yo, come on my show tomorrow. You can't tell me stuff like that. I don't care how drunk we are. I don't care how high we are. I'm going to remember that. Okay? So that next day, that next morning, that night, I'm like, yo, Kev, Wendy told me to come on the show tomorrow. Yo, back. That's what's up. Calling Kev all day, like, Kev, what's up? Can I come to the show? You're like, hold on. Boom. Yeah, get to the station. I got to the station, and I went up to WBLS, and I was there for like 25 minutes. And, you know, that night, Kev was offering me a position as her co-host. And I didn't even know that she was looking for a co-host. You know, Wendy was smart enough to know, her and Kev was smart enough to know that they wanted to make the transition to television. So I don't want to say they was trying to soften Wendy up a little bit. They were just trying to get her ready for TV. So they wanted her to have a co-host who was from radio, who wasn't a comedian but was funny. So I guess they thought I was funny, and who had a little edge. And I guess they thought I had a little edge. So I'm the person they hired.
So what I found was interesting was that, okay, they knew that was a great dynamic between those two. You know, you can kind of tell that Wendy was his mentor because she is a shock jock herself, but he's not as awful as Wendy Williams. Okay, because that hussy is awful. He's more so of a, I'm going to say anything out of my mouth to get a reaction from you type person, which I consider myself to be. But their dynamic was great. two cancers work together well. They understand each other. They stalk the same. But absolutely, the two cancers got it done. It's just sad to me that Wendy allowed personal situations to break up that dynamic.
It's Rakim that is Chingy.
Chingy.
Yeah, I mean, rappers like you
Charlamagne.
show us that other rappers can really rap.
And then I got fired from Wendy in 2008. Combination of reasons. I think that the main one was just pure economics. It was a bittersweet moment because I realized that I did have some impact while I was on Wendy's show because, news outlets wanted to cover me being fired. Like I was like, wow. I didn't even realize. I was in the New York Times, Charlamagne got fired. I didn't even know they knew I really existed like that. And I didn't mind being fired from Wendy's show, to be honest with you, because I feel like it was a toxic environment. So, I think God was removing me from that situation to set me up for better things. It took me a while to learn that lesson, though, but eventually I severed all ties with them altogether. But I ended up doing my own morning show in Philadelphia. This is when Beanie Siegel had a beef with Jay-Z. That was like when Twitter first started, and I remember seeing all these tweets about Beanie Siegel dissing Jay. The first tweet I saw was from Fabulous, and Fabulous was like, y'all never thought I'd see the day when Beanie Siegel dissed Jay-Z, and I was like, what? And then K. Slade had played the record, so I heard it, and I was like, oh, shoot. I'm like, I just reached out to a couple people I knew in Philly, I got to get Beanie Siegel on the phone this morning. And he called up, and he just kind of aired Jay out for 30, 40 minutes. Forget it, because that Monday, I was supposed to move into my new townhouse in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Me and my wife had already packed up everything. The apartment was clean. I had clothes and stuff in my car. I already had put down the security deposit. And that Beanie Siegel interview played on that Thursday. Went viral that Thursday night. Played it back Friday morning. Saturday was Halloween. Monday come into work. Boogie D, who was the program director at the time, called me in the office and was like, we're moving in another direction.
Okay, so let me say this about him. When he continued on to talk about how he had already had things in place. I've been there. I've had that. I'm telling you, this guy, I have so much more respect for him. I loved his hustle. I love his hustle. I love how he thinks, He thinks more so like a businessman. But I can truly relate to him when you have your vision on one specific path. Like you're going this way. And then something happens like that. And you're lost. And what he said he had to do was he had to package his up because he had already gave his notice to his apartment because he was going to move into a townhouse because he had just received a good job. Or, he had been at that good job for 6 months and he was getting ready to buy a home. And for him to have lost his job unexpectedly, I'm sure it was about Jay-Z. I'm sure it was over Jay-Z because I believe he has a lot of power, just like I believe that Beyonce has power. Bravo Andy has power. Certain people have a lot of power, I think Kaya calls it, and I can't wait to do the video tonight with the gag order in the Queen Supreme Court. But certain people have a lot of power to make things happen, and it's sad that you could just with one button, one phone call, you can crumble somebody's life. But he had to go backwards. He moved home to South Carolina with his now wife family, and he said that his sister told him, look at you did all these different things and now you're back here. And his basic response to his sister was, yeah, I might be back here now, but I'm not going to stay here. You will still be here. I said, you better tell that boy. Okay, so to kind of sum up everything that was left of the video, he talked about how he felt about the rape culture. It was something that I've been saying a long time. That rape culture back in the 80s, that was something normal. Especially me being from uptown DC, it was a running joke that it would be like, oh, child, you ain't from uptown. I ain't got to worry about you taking no pussy. It was so regular that people didn't even report it. You know what I'm saying? It was only a select few of girls that was like, this isn't right. But when you've been conditioned to believe that, oh, that's just something that happens because, you know, in men's mind, they're like, oh, no actually means yes, that you get so confused in your mind that, wait a minute, did my no say yes? So you confused. You don't know, did I deserve it? Was that supposed to happen to me? So when he spoke about that, he was like, you know, it's about time that these young ladies, you know, stood up, you know, because men have been taking advantage of the rape culture a long time. And I'm glad that he said something about it. So, you know, I think that's the businessman in him. To me, Charlamagne God is very, very smart. Very, very smart. Reckless, shit talking, you know, a lot of things he say is, you know, off the chain. And like I said, Charlamagne is very solid in his appearance, because when he be saying reckless stuff to the people in the studio, it's like he not stern, you know, those people like Birdman or who was that? Oh, Jesus. Beanie Siegel in the face like, go ahead, ninja. Hit me. His look, when he's staring somebody in the face, when he's looking the savage beast in the face, it's more so like, hit me, ninja, and I'm going to sue the F out of you. And that's what I love about him. So he's solid in it. Like he's, you know, I'm not going to fight you. I'm going to sue you. So that's what I loved about him. The final thing was that he said that he can see himself growing. That he wasn't the same guy that was sniffing chairs 2 years ago. Child, he was a shock jock. He don't even like the word shock jock, but anyway, I thought it was very interesting. I thought that it was very informative. I hope that people see it, especially young men, to understand that you don't have to be your environment. You can transcend past your environment, no matter how negative it is, and that you can accomplish more, and don't let one particular thing stop you from going, because Jay-Z putting the finger on your nose is a huge stopper right there. Him, pull his plug, get him out of here. Huge. Now that's blacklist, and that makes me feel, or blackball. That makes me feel like, can you get past blackballing? Because I would believe that Jay-Z is powerful enough to stop him. That's what I would believe. But he moved past it. He got past it. So I believe that if he can move past those different elements, that he'll be greater. You know, I mean, he's doing very well. And plus, you know, we all know Charlamagne the God chases that coin, because if you remember his the rival station, the one that's right across the street, because you have the Breakfast Club with DJ Envy, and then you have the Hot 97 in the morning, I think it is. I forget the name, but the one with Ebro, they were going after Charlamagne. They was trying to get Charlamagne. It's just they wasn't paying him the money he wanted. So he stayed where he was. So that's the facts about that. Charlamagne was trying to go across the street to where Ebro was. If he would have got his money, he would have been gone. So that's old paper chasing husband. So anyway, guys, remember this. The same people you meet on the way up will always be the same people you meet on the way down. Naysayers, my patron loves. Have a good one. Deuce.